So far, we have tried to understand what is collaborative learning. We also saw what is game-based learning. In this unit, we'll try to understand how can we combine collaborative learning and game-based learning to basically create what we can call as collaborative games, right? So what are the elements of good collaborative game in the learning context, right? So we have to, which means, so what does it mean? So we are now trying to create a game which is not about individuals. Now we are forming teams, right? So that is essentially what collaborative game is all about, right? Which means that we have to have all elements of group work, but in a gaming scenario. You would have noticed that these days we keep hearing about lots of hackathons, right? So hackathons is a great example of collaborative game-based learning, right? Which means that firstly, we have to create all the good aspects of collaborative learning, which means that we have to create the group, we have to form the groups in such a way that there is built-in interdependence amongst the team members in that particular group, which means that in order to succeed, they have to synergistically work with each other, and so that they are able to compete with other groups who are also pursuing similar goals. There has to be strong communication channels that has to be established for synchronous and asynchronous communication, right? So synchronous communication, when I am talking about a communication channel for synchronous communication, so this could be, setting up, a scheduled meeting of wherein all the team members will come together, or there could be, if we are really talking about on-field activities, so we have to create that particular space where they are able to sit together and work on the project in a collaborative way, constantly talking to each other and communicating with each other. And of course, asynchronous communication channels are also required for prior planning. Now, if you think of an hackathon kind of a situation, the whole activity is happening in a highly synchronous manner, and it could be that is where they rent large halls. They'll set up round tables, they'll set up enough charging points and this and that, right? So that becomes very important. There is also this important part of planning finite amount of resources, right? Because what is it that we want to do, right? So it is not just the end goal of solving a problem, which can be true in an industrial setup, but in a learning setup, we want to encourage them to be able to work in a constrained environment and solve the problems in the most efficient manner. So that constraint can come in terms of the time, in terms of the equipment and infrastructure. Sometimes we may also give the specific budget to them, saying that, okay, I'm going to give you this much of a budget, and you have to solve this problem with, say, a 4-member team. So this is how typically hackathons are organized, wherein there will be sponsors who say that, okay, this problem needs to be solved. Each team is given, say, 1,000 rupees to buy the necessary components. Especially if it is an electronics kind of a project, they are given small budget to buy the necessary electronic equipment and solve the problems. A little bit of small motors and small breadboards, some wires, this and that. And you may also give them some amount of equipment or infrastructure to work with, and also fixed amount of personnel, and time constraints will be there. So people will say 6-hour hackathon, 24-hour hackathons, and so on, right? But there also has to be a very clear way to resolve conflicts. especially if you are talking about a collaborative game, the conflict resolution. In the previous discussion on conflict resolution, we talked about conflict resolution within the team, right? But then the moment you get into collaborative games where multiple teams are involved, there has to be ability for people to resolve the conflicts. See, conflicts is not necessarily a bad thing, right? So when we are talking about conflict, there could be conflicts that could be arising out of in the decision making itself. When I have to evaluate the design to choose between two different designs that are there, here the conflict is in terms of what each of those designs are capable of achieving. So when I am talking about conflict, it is not necessarily about conflict across individuals, not even across teams, right? So we are talking about conflicts, the ability to overcome conflicts in the various decision making process itself. So that can be made possible. Those scenarios can be created by incorporating lots of open-ended scenarios, right? Do you remember one of the things I said, that as guides, our job is to guide and not dictate, right? So that is where bringing in plenty of opportunities for discussions and collaborative learning comes into the picture. In terms of the technologies and tools, definitely we need much more powerful platforms for creating these educational games, especially which operate in collaborative modes, right? Now, there are, you can use these as keywords for searching on the internet, what kind of tools that are out there depending upon the discipline, the engineering discipline from which you are working on. So there are plenty of ready to use tools that are there, which can be directly incorporated to create a learning activity. There could be open source ones, there could be commercial ones, which institutional licenses can also be procured and be made available. And the ready to use tools do provide standard learning, fulfill standard learning objectives. But if you are having tools which can create custom programmable tools, right? So for that, the course instructors have to have the ability to customize a specific given tool. So many of the tools will say that, okay, these are the standard activities that are possible, but they also give you certain toolkits with which you can create customize specific learning experiences as well. So that requires a bit of more effort from the instructor, but that that makes it a little bit more powerful from your in achieving certain more sophisticated learning outcomes. Now, there are also new kind of platforms that are coming, which are called as no-code platforms. No-code platforms, as the name indicates, requires no programming language. Here, when I am talking about programming, I am specifically speaking about the ability to write software, create software. So they provide lots of drag and drop options. They provide lots of drag and drop options for you to design a specific learning activity, right? And they allow you to package this whole learning activity and deploy them in a way that is accessible to all the learners. So there are very powerful tools, platforms that are coming up. Without even using those platforms, you can use online collaboration tools. At least that should be there for conducting online meetings, for people to know when they're for synchronous online interactions, right? So they may not be sitting in a big hall working together. They may be sitting in their respective hostel rooms, right? And possibly, they may even be across different campuses, right? So this is the power of these online tools. So you can have shared digital whiteboards where people are writing simultaneously, drawing at the same time. Each one is contributing to different parts of it. or collaboratively creating documents, right? Even simple tools like Google Docs allow you to multiple people to work on different parts of the same document. Okay, version controlling is extremely critical in collaborative documents, because especially if different people are responsible for different portions of the project. So version control systems allow you to make the modifications, and those modifications are highlighted for different people, saying that okay, in that particular module these changes have been made, right? So these are the capabilities of the version control systems, including they also allow you to roll back if something goes wrong with specific versions of of any artifact that you are creating. Okay. Now, LMS or learning management systems are also becoming very, very sophisticated. Many of them support this collaborative and game-based learning through add-ons and plugins. Okay. Specifically, I would recommend that you can look at these terms called SCORM and LTI. Now, these are all standards that are being created for these plugins, which means that these plugins can attach with other learning management platforms which are SCORM or LTI compliant, right? As an example, the Moodle learning management system that you have learned as part of this particular course is indeed compliant with SCORM and LTI. So you have SCORM repositories that are available. You can go and search there, and for any learning and gaming tools, right, it will show up as activities under your in your Moodle in particular, right? So when you turn editing on and then say add an activity, then all these activities that are added by the administrator into your learning management systems are now available to course instructors for creating such game-based learning experiences. As I mentioned previously, AR, VR is definitely an option for non-computing kind of disciplines, right, in mechanical engineering and civil engineering, right? So you may want to incorporate AR, VR learning experiences as well. Okay, these online collaborative learning is not necessarily online, but collaborative game-based learning is not without its challenges. No, you will understand that much of the activities happen outside of the classroom, okay, outside of the class schedule as well. So there will be time constraints, so you have to be conscious about that. For learners, the activities should fit into their schedule, into their timetable, which is outside of their regular classroom timetable, right? So you have to remember that. So when you are setting up the deadlines or even the complexity of the activities, you have to be mindful of that. And as instructors, we have our own challenges in terms of the time constraints, because we should be able to accommodate these unstructured schedules, which is outside of our own regular classroom teaching hours. Another challenge I have seen is in terms of the space constraints as well. Okay, so depending upon the project, we may need to provide dedicated space for with necessary infrastructural support. As I said, if you want to encourage group interactions, right, so you need to have big enough classrooms which are also not laid out in the classical row-wise setup, but you need to have round tables with which encourages discussions. And but then if you are talking about large large classes with say 150 students, and if you are talking about even 5 members, we said 3 to 5 is an ideal group size. If you are talking about even 5, then we are talking about 30 teams, right? So where do we go for that space? So we may have to create multiple schedules, then that will impinge upon the time challenges as an instructor. So there's a good amount of balance that needs to be struck. Large class especially requires higher budget and resources, because use of tools is almost mandatory if you want to effectively create game based learning, right? As I said, if you are using Lego toolkits for creating for them to create things with that, then you need sufficient number of kits in a large classroom setup. Even online tools also require licenses, right? So if you are talking about, say, MATLAB simulation, right? MATLAB, Simulink, for example, right? So even Simulink now requires licenses, right? So they do require budgetary allocations and cost licenses. The other challenge that you will encounter is this student angle, right? So there may be students, their learning styles. We do talk about learning styles. There could be individualistic learning styles. So learners who will say that just leave me alone, I will learn, I'll crack the exam, I'll get good grades. So why are you bothering me, right? So to those students, we have to tell them that learning a particular, gaining knowledge is not just about getting good grades in the exams. So we have to say, so which means that in our whole overall learning rubric, we have to, and assessment rubric as well, we have to ensure that there are points and marks awarded to these collaborative team activities, okay? Because that is where it starts. If you simply say that 50% comes from internal exams and 50% comes from the final exam, then nobody is motivated to participate in these activities, right? So, a typical distribution that I use is 35, about 70%, 60 to 70% comes from these examinations, but definitely there will be group projects and activities, which contributes as much as 30% of the learning activities. So we have to, ensure that these are incorporated into the overall assessment scheme, and we also have to create an environment where every individual is given some responsibility and is able to show some result of the time and effort that they put in, right? So that becomes a challenge as an instructor for you to design these games and design these collaboration activities in such a way that actually, irrespective of their own capabilities and skills and academic level, they get a meaningful, satisfactory experience out of it, right? So which should not be tied just to the points and the grades that they get from this experience, because this is where we are saying that this learning is not maybe tangible, measurable learning which reflects in the form of marks, but it also gives them the experience and the satisfaction of having learned something. So that as an instructor is indeed a bit of a challenge. Okay. So finally, when we talk about, so we should look for opportunities to incorporate collaborative games because they are powerful pedagogical tools, and they also now are becoming the norm for even organizations to do shortlisting, right? So they conduct these hackathon activities, and those who do well in those hackathon activities are offered internships, they are offered even placements, right? So that is why as instructors and as institutions, we have to incorporate these collaborative gamified environments. So new tools are there. So feel free to explore and be open to explore, be open to experiment and incorporate them as part of these learning activities. And of course, there are these challenges that will be there. So that sufficient amount of effort has to be spent by the institution and the instructors to plan and address these challenges that are likely to arise.